Top of the day to you, beautiful people. I'm here with one of my closest friends and actually an amazing businessman. We're going to be talking about something that you guys, I'm sure you're interested about. Weed, marijuana, cannabis, whatever you want to call it. Ganja.
Ganja.
Ganja. So, therefore, let's find a few acronyms. Let's talk about it. So how many names do you think there's actually now out there to describe marijuana? Let's throw like 5 of it.
There's a ton of them. I mean, you went through a bunch of them. There's weed, there's ganja, there's MJ, skunk. I mean, there's
what?
Mary Jane. Yeah, there's a bunch of them out there.
So this is Claudio Canive. He's a G, especially in the industry, in the weed guide. You know, that's his company. He's the CEO of the company. You guys gonna find out a lot about it. We're gonna find out a lot about what's happening actually with the current regulation here in California, and so on. So first of all, it's been such a pleasure having you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
If you guys are logging in right now, watching Facebook Live, if you want to comment over there, if you have any questions about it, feel free to do so. We're here. We're responding in real time. So let's start with something that most of the people when they come here ask, right? We both come from, a different place. Where are you from?
My family's originally from Cuba. I was raised in Canada, but I've been in San Diego for the last 30 years.
There you go. Cubano.
Cubano.
Perfect. So tell me a little bit about how you grew up, and how did you end up in the marijuana business?
Sure. I was, like I said, I was raised in Canada, and I came to the United States, and then my dad left the United States, and I made my way over to California from New Mexico. I ended up going to university here, and made my home San Diego for the last 30 years. I've been in technology for the past 20 years or so. I've done everything from network simulation to content management to network management, and in the last few years I'd focused largely. I even ran a venture capital group for a while, technology focused, and an incubator. And then for the last couple of years I've been focused on cannabis, and how I got into it was a close personal friend of mine who I met in the early years that I got here, a guy named Todd DiRoberto. He had decided to get into the cannabis field in a kind of more conventional way, which would be like a dispensary, growing, and so forth. And one of the challenges that he found was, as most people with any subject, they do research on the internet. And everything that he was researching about cannabis was difficult to find. Anything from whether it was regulations or how to grow things, the effects of cannabis, and they were generally slighted towards the negative. And so he basically came to me with this idea. He said, "Hey, I can't find any content online. Can we build a cannabis search engine?" I said, "Well, you're high. It's like..."
That's probably the first reaction.
Right.
You're high.
Right. And so I started looking, and he was right. And there was this huge challenge with, and for one of the first reasons, it's like one of the, pot, it's like, okay, well, what is pot? And well, it's a pot, and it's pot. Weed, it's, the weed you smoke, or it's the weed that's in your garden. So there's all these colloquial challenges, and then also the content that was being produced generally wasn't the kind of content he was looking for. And so we set out on this path almost a couple of years ago to really focus on building a search engine that would suit the needs of the beginning consumer who wants to learn about cannabis, the medical patient, and the healthcare provider, the recreational user, and then people who want to get into the business. Anybody from real estate to...
and it's true what you're saying. I'm like, so I think Google is such a broad, search that when you actually try to find out a little more specifics, it takes for days. You got to scroll pages over pages over pages.
Yeah, so Google is a general purpose search engine. So it has billions of pieces of content indexed, and so you have this concept of how do I go to find content about a specific subject. And so we have vertical search engines, and an example of a vertical search engine would be like Auto Trader. What do you find at Auto Trader? Cars, Edmunds, cars, Pinterest, photos.
There you go.
Amazon was originally a vertical search engine for books,
Was
and
it?
now
Oh,
it's for products. And what's interesting is I think it was in November, I read a study that 67% of all product searches now originate on Amazon and not on Google.
You were telling me about that.
Right,
That's
and
insane. It's true, though.
so we basically created a search engine for cannabis. So we like to call it kind of like the Google of Ganja.
There you go, the
Right.
Google of Ganja.
Yeah.
So, I've always been fascinated on the business side of it about the marijuana industry because I heard and we had conversations with good friends about people becoming like millions of billionaires here, but some of them have became actually billionaires, the pioneers of that they got into the industry.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting to me. It's like, you're starting from something that's like, okay, you get stoned, it's weed, for recreational people. And then all of a sudden now, in the last couple of years, as a matter of fact, you have investors that invested into this project. We're talking about a business. It became like a multi-million-dollar business, which, I'll be honest with you, I'm personally interested, a part of real estate.
Sure. Sure. So, it's always been a business, whether it's been a legal business or not
illegal,
business.
exactly. That's what I meant to say.
Is a different question. And now kind of some people are operating in both a legalized capacity and a gray capacity, and then also in the black market. I think what you're seeing is a number of things happening. First of all, cannabis has always been a kind of a counterculture kind of thing, especially here in the United States, and it's been associated with people being lazy or people being incapacitated. It's also been
originally,
right,
right,
and
yeah,
there's also
true.
this idea that somebody who is a cannabis user is walking around completely out of it or what have you, and I was talking earlier about what the perception is now of the cannabis consumer. So if you got 100 people and there's now a lot of real study being done, professional study in this area, is you got 100 people in a room and you say how many people smoke cannabis, maybe 3 or 4 people hold up their hand, but the reality is there's probably more.
90+%.
Yeah, not 90, but a large number of them. And
I think in California, actually, it's surprisingly, I didn't expect
there's
that.
a large number.
It's huge.
So one of the ways that they're able to find out about cannabis consumption, which is kind of why we're interested in and what our kind of value proposition is they're able to look at what people are going into dispensaries. They're also able to take these surveys, and they found that in the next several years there are going to be 30 million new cannabis consumers in the United States.
30 million?
Yeah, 30 million new cannabis
Wow.
consumers, and if you take a look at the amount of money they're spending, that will end up supporting, it'll be a cumulative about 50 million total, will support somewhere between a $50 billion, $100 billion industry. And all of those people aren't the guys that are slacking and doing all of these things. These are working professionals. These are people that are 100% engaged. And
Let me ask you this just comes to my mind. Now, talking about 30 million people getting into cannabis, do you think it's going to affect the drug business? Like,
yeah.
the big industries that actually provide drugs and
Yeah,
medicine.
so that's another facet of it.
Did you think, and at one point, because think about it, if you use marijuana, let's say you got like headaches or pains or, the conventional Advil eventually is going to have less consumers using it and more use of pot.
Yeah,
at this
100.
point.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? That's
So when we talk about cannabis and marijuana or weed, however you want to say it, we're talking about historically a culture, or at least popular culture associates it with recreational use. There's been a long-standing practice that goes far back that it's actually started as a medicinal herb, right? And now we're finding a lot through testing, and that's one of the benefits of the legalization is there's a lot more focus on and money going into testing and understanding rather than anecdotal evidence, and it's absolutely correct. There's pain relief that people that have all sorts of different afflictions, whether it's for pain management, for epilepsy, Parkinson's. There's actually a very well-known case here of a retired police officer who came to San Diego for treatment specifically for marijuana to stop the shaking. I encourage you to go look at our site and Google or search for rather Parkinson's, and you'll see the impact of that. So there's a lot of medicinal benefits, and it should also be known as not all components of cannabis get you high, right? So there's a big push for CBDs, which have purely medicinal and therapeutic benefits, and which are still federally legal, but they could theoretically replace a lot of
CBD
medication.
Comes from the
it's one of the cannabinoids.
I just bought one of this.
And so that doesn't have a psychoactive component.
I didn't even
in it.
know. Okay.
Yeah, and that is used for a wide variety of afflictions. Everything from pain management, like I said, to people say it promotes healing, reduces cancer growth.
Wow. Yeah, it's an alternative to smoking cigarettes. So
it's interesting. I was talking briefly in the green room out there about what these new cannabis consumers. A lot of them are actually going to be in our age demographic, over the age of 40, and a lot of them won't be actually using the flower. They'll be vaping it or ingesting it, and so there's this idea that people probably don't want to smoke anymore, and the cigarette industry is probably under threat by the cannabis business.
We're going from a recreational thing that was illegal, now all of a sudden it's getting into something really medicinal that really will help people in need. I mean, it's true. I'm not ashamed to say, but years ago I used to have a problem when I moved here from Italy with my sleep for years.
Right.
I was deprived. I couldn't sleep at night. I was like 4 hours, 3 hours, and I used it. Remember, I had to get a card, go to the doctor, get everything. So now it seems like it's changed, right? In January 1st, what happened? Tell us a little bit about
so there's really kind of three states, not states as in actual states, but there's three kind of situations. Is you have complete federal state legalization, where you have both recreational and medicinal marijuana legalized at the state level. You have some states that only have medicinal permission, and then you have some states that don't have any allowance at all. California in January was I believe the 8th state that allowed for recreational use. It's also the largest cannabis economy in the world. It's also one of the largest economies in the world. And so January 1st, you were no longer required to have a medical card.
Wow.
And so that's why you saw lines for dispensaries out there.
Yeah, I saw that. So what happened to all those doctors that were used to do like the provide you with a card? So they're out,
so
much, right?
no. Well, so there's still a medicinal provision.
Because there's two different strains.
No. There's just there's two different categories of users, and so I believe that, and this is where some of the clarity. You can search on our site for some of these things, but in states that you have a medicinal requirement, you're required to have a physician prescribe it to you, and then and that still may be the case.
So it's still unclear
how it's in California, I think it's pretty clear that you just need a driver's license.
So
but
you with a driver's license, I go to the dispensary and
you just need to prove you're a resident at this point, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, it's amazing. Good stuff.
Yeah.
So I think this actually now, on a business standpoint, is going to change completely the industry. I mean. So there's certainly a lot more. The big changes are with the allowance of recreational is that anybody that doesn't have a prescription can get it. So that's obviously probably increases the pool of users that's really going to be purchasing cannabis at dispensaries. I think it also removes some of that
money being flowed to the black market. So people will probably be less likely to buy from non-legalized locations. So I think it opens the door. I mean, it's not fully decriminalized in a way, but it certainly, if you have an ounce of marijuana, regardless of where you get it from, I don't think anybody's going to have any challenge.
Right.
Pretty much, no one's been saying anything for a long time anyway. But so I think you'll see an increase in consumption, and certainly in Colorado, what ended up happening, because Colorado is probably the best example, and Nevada next. Colorado had legalized cannabis, and you saw certainly the black market decline significantly there, and you saw a lot of because there were legitimate sales, and you could tell there were legitimate sales because of the increase in tax revenue, and so Colorado is generating $1 billion in tax revenue, I believe, at this point from cannabis sales. Yeah,
I think we're gonna get there too, actually. If
for sure,
not even more.
For sure, no question.
So let's take a second over here and respond to some of the comments. So I see Sierra. I heard you can get a tax break when you have a medical card versus going recreational. You heard of that?
I have not heard of that. You can go to our weed guide and probably and look for that. I'm not clear. I mean, I would seem to make sense. If you spend money, on medical services, those things are tax deductible. Right. So you probably have to check with your accountant. I can give you lots of advice, but not tax advice.
So, and in a minute, we're going to actually explore the site, the weedguide.com.
Sure.
So, Greg Gosler, Eva Silva, way to go, San Diego, yes. Greg, makes sense. Vertical search engines provide the information you're looking for without all the clutter. Plus, you can customize the experience.
Great.
That's exactly what you just mentioned.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. Appreciate that.
I don't think you pay state tax when you have, I can read that, when you have a card, I guess. Okay, that's David.
Okay, I think he just answered that. You don't pay the state tax. Oh, the state tax for, not a tax break. Oh, you don't pay taxes on the cannabis when you purchase. Okay, if you have a medical card. Okay,
there you go. Interesting.
That makes sense.
See, we're learning from that too.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your website.
Sure.
The website, weedguide.com. So there is an app, right?
Yeah, so there's an app available on iOS and Android, as well as the website's available on any web browser, on any platform.
You can just do weedguide.com and then from there use our browser. Can we zoom in? Let's show consumers out there about...
Oh, am I going here?
There we go.
Which one? Which way?
This way.
That way.
The wrong way.
Wrong.
Here it is.
Okay.
Boom.
Yeah, that's fine.
So...
I don't know if you can see
Seems
that.
like pretty easy.
Yeah,
so it's weedguide.com. You guys can search on on the app.
Yeah, so basically the way that the product works is it's free for everybody, by the way. You don't have to log in. None of your details are
Nope.
Sorry. That's my mom calling. Sorry about that.
I'm sorry, TV.
So please don't call her. The website enables you to search for anything like you would in a normal search engine by just typing something in, and I'll type something in a second. And then it also allows you to search by whatever category you fit into. So if you're a recreational user, medical user, you're new to cannabis, or you're in the cannabis business and you're interested in specific topics related to that. So if you were interested in a specific strain of marijuana, for example, you might type that in, and I can't really do this that well.
And by the way, we had a few people here from the studio checking out the website. And
so there you go.
They said it really worked.
There's a specific strain of marijuana, and if you search for it, it'll give you a definition of the strain, the THC. It'll find different products and services in that related to that specific strain, and if you're interested in purchasing it, you click on that, and it'll show you locations in which you can purchase it.
I don't think I've seen anything like this on Google. There's no way. Okay, good. So Either way, if you're a consumer or you're just curious or you're thinking about getting into the business or anything, you could use the WIT guide and eliminate all the clutter like our friend Greg Gosler said.
Yeah.
So you can just go straight into the point and study, do your research, and therefore it'll be easier.
Our moniker is take the strain out of your search, right? So we're trying to make it easier for people to find things, and by kind of separating people, or not separating people, but allowing people to identify what their interests are as, hey, I'm a beginner. Well, if you're a beginner, you're probably interested in, do I get a medical card? Do I need to get, what should I vape it? Should I smoke it? What are the benefits? Just, So
take the strain
out of your search. Yeah.
Take the strain out of your search. This is WIT guide. I like it. That could be a commercial on TV. I love it.
So the intent is to make it easier for people to find content related to cannabis.
That's awesome. If there's anybody else out there watching this Facebook live show, feel free again to chime in, ask questions, comments. We appreciate your love. Share it. I know Claudio, actually, it's quite interesting, Claudio, because you're very, very respectful. You have a huge reputation in the IT business. Mm-hmm. So a big shot like you that gets into this, it means this is something serious. So,
yeah, I mean,
how did you come? I mean, the WIT guide, you told us about the idea and stuff, but what's behind? I mean, I'm sure it costs a lot of money to come to do a website like that.
Yeah, so I got a lot of questions about that, right? So my background is, I've done everything from network simulation to, I hosted some of the largest sites for three-letter broadcasters like Fox and Comcast and NBC, and was really integrally involved in a lot of different large-scale projects. And I took this on for a number of reasons, obviously because my friend thought it was an interesting idea, but also because it's incredibly challenging and it's really frontier. It's like, no pun intended, it's grassroots. But it's something that's never really been done before. It's an industry where I feel like I can make a mark, and I believe in the mission, right? I believe that that we're all entitled to be able to do what we want, and this weed or this plant is far less dangerous than some of the other things that we do, and I think that it provides an alternative for medicine, pain relief, things like that. I think we haven't been able to explore all of the possibilities because of the illegal status of it, and being able to be on the forefront of making big changes is something important to me.
Right, and I'm not a consumer. I used to be. I'm not a consumer anymore, but it fascinates me, and I really see that. Talking to people, because I'm a curious guy. I like to ask questions and stuff, and I see that's true. If you have a headache, you smoke or vape it or eat a little edible. Yeah. And all of a sudden, you don't have problems with your headaches anymore, or stomach pain, or menstrual pain for women. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, it really works.
Yeah, I mean, and those are some things that are pretty well defined. I mean, there's a lot of areas that are not clear, but there's a significant amount of evidence that it helps with seizures. I had a friend of mine. He was asking me about CBD because he has a child that has epilepsy, and it's helped them in the past. Parkinson's. There's the way that we actually built our product was using subject matter experts, and subject matter experts fit into those categories, which is, you're new to cannabis, you're into recreational, you're into medicinal, and you're into the business. And one of the people that we worked with was a veteran, and he was a combat veteran. He had PTSD, and he was taking all sorts of sleeping medications, and now he is a cannabis consumer, and he's an executive at a company that I won't name, but he's been very successful at keeping his trauma at bay as a result of this. So I think there's a lot to be said about it, and it's diverting from the stereotype of that everybody's just getting high and having fun. I mean, there's certainly that component that's always going to be there, but there's certainly room for other.
And I think
Thanks.
one of the reasons why, I really care about talking about this is because people always have a prejudgment without knowing
Right.
anything. You know what I mean? The first thing you say is like, oh, you smoke weed. Oh, then you're a drug addict. Oh, and then, you're always stoned. And then you don't
Yeah.
do anything about your life and whatnot. But actually, when you start doing research and studies, you really find out that's totally different ballgame. Of course, there's kids, like whatever, teenagers that get high or whatnot. That's whatever. That's course of their.
And absolutely, that's what we do with our product also. And I'm not here to plug our product, but the idea is how do you find out about these different stories, and as they pertain to you. So like you have a specific symptom, like, or someone is having some sort of problem, right? And hard to find these stories, hard to understand, what the effect of cannabis is, because you can't find these things on Google. And so we try to bring all of that and surface it to the forefront. And it's an advocacy platform, informational platform, but it also provides, counter views. Is, can you ingest too much? What are the dangers for children and so forth. So.
Right. So let's talk now about my favorite topic, which is real estate.
Real estate. Yeah.
So, we had this chat, we spent Christmas together.
Yeah.
We're really good friends. And, it's interesting. Like now you start seeing these new websites, 420 real estate or anything that's related to real estate. So I know there's something, what do they call it? The triangle up there in California? The triangle where they grow a lot of marijuana.
Oh, we're in Humboldt County and those things? Yeah.
So, and I don't know if it's just me, but it seems like prices of land has been going up like insanely high.
Yeah. So I think one term that we haven't really used here, and we've kind of talked about, the interest in it and the size of the market, is this idea of the green rush. So much like the California gold rush of the 1800s, is everybody's coming in to get to this, and the reality is that the people that are really going to benefit, just like the miners did during the gold rush, is the people that sold the picks and shovels were the ones that made the money, not the miners. And so the people that own real estate are going to have that are willing to either cultivate themselves, extract, or offer retail operation, or all three, a vertically integrated solution, certainly will have a win.
Totally.
Historically speaking, because the regulations have been very vague as to what you can do, and they vary from city to city, it was hard to find locations that fit into the code, and conditional use permits were expensive, and so forth. And so real estate was at a premium, and will probably likely continue to be at a premium
for where you can grow.
Yeah, where you can grow, where you can sell.
So I think that's still limited, right? Where you can actually grow.
Well, there's a lot of the state made the mandate that it's legal, and then the cities have some, they have regulations specific to the cities.
Because I remember, actually in 2017, last year, I had at least 3 to 4 clients that were clearly to buy something, and it was interesting because some cities, like you said, there's like some
there's
the counties.
you have to be a certain distance from a school and these kinds of things.
There's quite a lot of regulations.
And now California's set some very strict or some guidelines about the size of the operation and so forth, because the state has has mandated that that you're allowed to do certain things, which and it wouldn't be fair for me not to talk about this right now, because on Thursday Jeff Sessions rescinded the Cole memo, and the Cole memo was an Obama-era agreement where the federal government was not allowed to interfere with the cannabis operations at the state level. And so he's pulled the plug on that, which paves the way for the federal government to get involved in cannabis. And so that makes it, I think, much more challenging for big money and people that are, because in theory, your real estate could be confiscated because it's something
Right,
under
because
federal
yes,
law and
it's
something
under
like that.
that's why there's a law.
So it'll be very interesting to see what transpires from that. Obviously, there's a large constitutional question here that comes to mind. It's like the states' rights versus the federal rights, which was the basis for the Civil War. I'm not saying there's going to be a Civil War, but the idea that does the state have the sovereign right to determine what its what its medical and recreational policies are towards cannabis, and the states are all arguing yes, of course, and the federal government is just for now they've just said that they've opened the door for the federal government to
Right.
enforce it, which could be problematic for people like particularly with large equity in real estate and so forth. Yeah.
Right. So I think it's, there's two things, the federal and local jurisdictions and whatnot. I think it's creates more of a confusion for everybody.
Yeah.
I come from Europe, from Italy, and Holland, Amsterdam.
Yeah.
Classic example. It's
Right.
been legal forever.
Forever, yeah.
And it's been the mecca of people going there and having a vacation.
Yeah.
And it brought so much tourism over there. The nation itself, Holland, it's super clean, probably one of the cleanest in Europe.
Right.
Everything is controlled. The police is on it. You need to have a license, in order to sell. It's taxable. So
Right. Just like it is here, yeah.
yeah, the government has got a lot of money in reserves because it's a multi-million-dollar business. So I don't understand why there's still some gray areas here in the United States. Well,
I think there's a cultural shift that's happening. It could be, it's a vestige in what they think cannabis was in the past. There's a lot of people like Jeff Sessions who went and said, that people who smoke marijuana are bad people. It's worse than the heroin epidemic. He kind of went back on that. But the point being is people have really strong opinions. To be honest with you, I told my parents, they're like, you went from, working with, Fortune 500 companies and, network simulation and broadcasting to the cannabis business. They're like, so they don't get it. So there's,
right.
there is, I should say, let me rephrase that. My father doesn't get it, my mom gets it. But the reality is there's still this huge, people are halfway in and halfway out,
Right.
It's, and so it's, and there's going to be a battle there. The war on drugs has, I think, by and large, been a failure, there's a lot of people that are incarcerated as a result of it. But if you think about the number of people that are incarcerated as a result of marijuana, that's a huge amount of revenue that privatized prisons they're making and taxpayers are paying for in
Right,
state-run
exactly.
prison.
And
But on the flip side, if you remove marijuana, it's like how often is there a marijuana arrest? Is the or will we lose law enforcement jobs and all of these other things? So there's a huge, there's a huge lobby that wants it to. Yeah.
We still can't figure it out. I
Yeah.
think we'll give it a 2-3 year run.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I think it's so much part of the culture now that it's going to be a challenge, right? Are people going to drink less because, and all of these other things, and so.
And I read an article about that actually.
Yeah.
Eventually, it's going to happen.
Are people going to smoke less cigarettes?
Yeah, less cigarettes, less alcohol. Yeah, I think if you're
and those
high,
are business models that are being challenged right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think, eventually, the good thing is that majority of people in San Diego especially, they use Uber or Lyft or whatnot. So we're not going to have a problem having people high driving the car. Or,
what's interesting in Colorado, because Colorado's got the longest use case of both, in the United States anyway, of recreational and medicinal use. And, they have seen, like assault, decline and vehicular homicides and drunk
people
driving.
are happy.
Yeah,
Are you kidding me? You smoke, you're happy.
Yeah, and so the reality is, and it's hard to attribute them all to that,
Right.
but you look at enough of those things and you say, well, maybe that's the case. I'll tell you a small anecdotal story I was telling earlier in the green room is I went to a cannabis-only event. It's called HempFest. It's the largest cannabis event in the world.
Yeah.
And so, depending on who you ask, there's somewhere between 150 and 250,000 people. And we were all there, and we were we had set up a booth, and we were handing out stuff, and there was no alcohol allowed inside this place, and it was in this large park in Seattle. And and to give you an idea of the size, you're looking at like a mile of booths and stages and things like that.
People is a lot of people.
Yeah, and they had food and all of that kind of stuff and drinks, but no alcohol. And so, the first day, we were really busy, and I didn't get a chance to go to the bathroom until probably like 3 o'clock or something like that. It was in the afternoon when it started to, kind of die down a little bit, and I got a bathroom break. And the worst thing at a festival is to go to a porta potty, right? Everybody knows.
I agree.
It's like the worst possible thing.
It's true.
And so
it's a nightmare.
And so, I walked and there's this, probably like I would say 40 or 50 porta potties there, and I was like, okay, it's like playing Russian roulette. Like, which one's going to be like the worst, right? I wasn't sitting down. At least not. I don't usually sit down. Sometimes I have to, but so I opened the porta potty and looked inside, and I was like, wow, it's clean. So I went to the bathroom and I came out, and I was like, in my OCD nature, I was like, I opened the door to the next one.
Just if it was clean.
Yeah. And so I went through about 20 porta potties, and they were all clean. And I was like, this is odd. And so I went back and I described, the thing to one of my coworkers, Sarah, and she's like, oh, it's kind of strange. And so, I went back, and next time they're all clean. And it came to the conclusion is that, people don't get drunk. They don't throw up all over the toilet potties. The men are able to aim properly, and there's not toilet paper all over the place. And then the other thing that I noticed, there's like 150,000 people. There was very little security presence, and so I think that's one of the things that you're talking about. People are just kind of hanging out and chilling,
and I think they're happier.
Yeah, happier. And there's I didn't see any fights or any of those kinds of things.
Usually, when people get drunk, there's fights, concerts, and whatnot. So, last thing, we're about to wrap up. It was really informational.
Thank you.
Super cool because a lot of people are watching and commenting on this Facebook Live show, and I appreciate it once again.
Yeah, thank
you.
Now,
two more things. Future about your business. So, tell me a little bit about. Now you got it's the weed search.
Yeah.
The weed guide. It's going to become eventually, in my opinion, the Google search for weed.
Yeah. So our next step. So we really launched in October, and we were grateful you asked this question before. We were lucky enough to have some amazing investors behind us, so we were able to raise a substantial amount of capital, and it's really to build the business from a marketing standpoint. And really all it is it's always going to be free for the users. It's going to be for visitors. It's an information portal, and our goal is really to just get people to use the site and to find value in it, and to continue to give us suggestions. Our idea is that eventually that we'll be able to provide some statistical information that no one else can, related to everything from consumption, so that people will be able to really understand, like, okay, well, my 80-year-old grandma went to Weed Guide. She represents one of 800,000 people that searched for this specific term. This strain is what she looked for, and we won't know by name who those people are, but statistically we'll be able to say, hey, 10% of the people that went to Weed Guide, we're looking at the specific ailment. Here are the products and services that help them. Here are the locations that they went to. Here are the support groups, and this will give us some way for us to to provide better information and for people to do research about the things that can help benefit the community. And so we're going to be in a growth mode. As I said, we were in San Diego Business Journal. We closed a
Yeah, you were.
round of-
I actually saw the article. I'm like, oh, that's my buddy.
Yeah, and so I've been on a few shows. I was on World Viral TV. The guys from there were kind enough to invite me with Jane West over to Colorado, and was able to talk about the platform. And so we've starting to build some momentum. We have thousands of users now, and we're getting thousands and thousands of queries, and in terms of like what are people searching for, and that's helping us to understand what cannabis people want and what and what non-cannabis people are looking for. So yeah.
So I think the business is so large and diverse that
Yeah.
you can get into it. There are different strains.
Yeah, and there's lots of people getting into it.
So much,
There's Peter Thiel is the guy that founded PayPal with Elon Musk, and he's also the first investor in Facebook, and he runs something called the Founders Fund, and he's invested heavily in the cannabis space, and there's a lot of people coming in, and so the ability to professionalize the industry while still maintaining its counterculture roots is going to be an exciting time to be here. So
Totally.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, it seems like, do you have any questions for me? I feel like one thing I want to really, I think we should utilize your site for properties that are good for growers or commercial buildings that they're in a zone where, you can actually open up a dispensary or whatnot.
Yeah.
So that would be a good thing. I think, related to real estate, that would be
yeah,
a
so
really
we
good
have
tool.
we have a specific section on our site, which is if you're interested in the cannabis business, we segment it into grower, dispensary owner, and cultivator rather, and you can click on real estate topics there. You can find out about what the latest policies are, maybe about real estate that might be available, and so forth. As with anything, you want to do your due diligence. So the regulations have changed significantly. They've changed, since January 1st, and each city has kind of its own policy that may or may not have rolled out. So be really, I personally want to look into it because, like I said, I had several clients that were interested in buying. There was a deal in Anza that we had last year, 2017. It was 250 acres, and I had seriously 4 to 5 buyers that wanted to make this huge operation out there. Yeah.
But unfortunately, I wasn't in that zone where you can actually grow. I'm wondering if now with the regulation it's changed, if you can grow or not.
I think you definitely would want to look, and then obviously get there's the growing, and then there's the permit to do it, and then I think that a lot of people underestimate what the capital costs are to do something like that, particularly in an area where it's so hot and so forth, and the electricity costs and so forth. So like anything else, but now the opportunity is there to open it up, and there's always that federal concern. It's like, hey, if I own the property, can they seize the property? I'm hopefully we'll get past that soon. I hope so, certainly California is a greenfield opportunity for cannabis. Everybody's looking at it. Marijuana stocks, since cannabis was legalized, have kind of shot through the roof. They pulled back a little bit since the Cole memo guidance that was given by the Department of Justice. But I think there's a tremendous opportunity here.
I think there's a lot of opportunities in the business standpoint, even as a grower or dispensary, or even what you do as a service. Yeah. So I'm wondering I'm just thinking about this, if they're going to come up with the Uber of delivery.
They actually do. There's a company called Ease.
Ease?
Ease,
they really came up with that.
It's been in business for a couple of years. They have an office here. They service a number of different geographies in California. They have a limited number of items that they deliver from dispensaries, but it's already here. Just talking about in general, there's a great set of companies here in San Diego. that are cannabis focused. There's actually an incubator and an accelerator not far from here, right down the street, actually run by ArcView. The name is Canopy, San Diego.
Canopy.
Yeah, Eric Gomez runs that.
What is that?
And so basically, they take they do a series of interview-like things to get companies, fledgling companies, to go ahead and start. They give them a little bit of money, some training, and then they graduate them and they do pitches. And so there's a few really great companies that have come out that I've met out of that class. One of them is Direct Cannabis Network. It's Adelia Carrillo is the CEO, and she provides up-to-date information about cannabis. So she profiles companies and laws, regulations, and all that.
It's becoming like a more
and she's very good. There's also a company run by Christian Valdez, which is called Traffic Roots, which is an advertising platform.
Cool.
And there's a number of people also in the the cultivation space, and some great business people, great companies. Close with the people from Tory Holistics. They're fantastic business people. Fantastic service, and so there's just a huge community here supporting it, and professional business people that are in it for the long run. So,
and it's also because actually you know them because you have a search engine, therefore it's all you're interested in the research and find out who's the best.
Yeah, it's cool because when I started in this, it was it was still pretty fledgling, and all of these folks just kind of have gravitated together because we're kind of like, we're in cannabis. And it was funny, we went to San Diego Startup Weekend, and all of the cannabis people are there, and it's like, what do you guys do? We're in cannabis. They're, oh wow, you're in cannabis too. We're all kind of together because it's kind of an odd,
of course,
it's an odd thing, and people are like, you're in cannabis? Okay, whatever that is. So the community here has been pretty strong. We have events that we go to that kind of all bond. Amazing. And so
awesome. Well, how can people out there contact you to ask about the Weed Guide?
You can visit us on the web at www.weedguide.com. You can download the app. You can like us on Facebook, Weed Guide. If you have social media and you want to tag us, it's hashtag search Weed Guide. You can find us on Instagram as well under that handle. Just download the software, the product, or the app, or go visit, search for stuff. Make sure that it's totally free. Tell your friends about it. Share it on Facebook if you'd like, or on social media. And then if you have any suggestions, there's a contact form there. Or if you also have any kind of things that you think that we should be doing, there's a feedback form on the front there. And I answer most everything as well. We're a small team. We're a San Diego company, so we'd love to have San Diego people support us.
And feel free to ask more questions on this Facebook Live feed. We're going to be tagging Claudio as well in the company, so he's going to see all the comments. If you guys have any recommendation about the website. So again, visit the website. It's weedguide.com. You can download the app. It's actually really cool. I was looking with him. And thanks again. It was awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all of you for watching. This is a real talk with Giuseppe, and I'll talk to you soon. Ciao.